Hello and welcome to today's video. I thought it might be kind of fun to sort of show you our garden thus far through the season. So I just wanted to show you kind of the spring cleanup that we did in order to help the garden look the way it does today. I want to start here in the long borders. So just a little bit of background if you're new here, welcome. My name is Anna and this is our cottage garden. So we garden in the Northeast in a zone 5A. We live on the side of a mountain. So our soil, if you can call it that, is just very, very rocky. It's mainly rocks in the soil. Rocks and some sand, and then underneath that is very, very hard clay. So there's a lot of amending that we have to do. There's, just a lot of kind of prep work, as I know it takes for most gardens. One of the preps that we have to do is make sure that we keep animals kind of out of the garden, which is why we built a fence. This animal, we gotta keep our eyes on all the time though. George somehow got into our border just now. Hi, I think you mean to be somewhere else. This is Georgie. She's blind, so we are her seeing eye people. And she has different ideas about what she's going to be doing in the garden than we have. We need to get one of those, like a little, like a paddock for her. We need to get like a little chicken run for you, George, so that you can be outside and enjoy the weather, but not get into too much trouble. How does that sound? Yeah, we're going to start here in these long borders. I think I gave you all the info that I need. I love hearing where you're from. I mean, it's so fun to hear about, those of you who are in the Southern Hemisphere who are, experiencing winter right now. And for those of you who are in Europe, it's so fun. And all over the country, it's just really, really fun to be able to connect with you. And I don't know, connecting with other gardeners, it just makes me really happy. These borders were created 2 years ago, and this used to just be driveway, very similar to the driveway that we have here. So very, very rocky, very compact. And so it's been a challenge for sure to turn this into a proper border, but it's basically the sunniest area that we live because we live in a deciduous woodland. So in season, it's very, very shady on our property. So we wanted to, it's like, what's the point of our car getting hot, getting all that sun? We might as well extend our garden and actually be able to plant some things that like the sunshine. So we planted all kinds of shrubs last year, just trying to create kind of a foundation for these new borders, and tons of perennials, some of which we divided from other areas in the garden, which is a nice way to like extend a new border or build a new border, is just to either, sow things from seed or to divide other plants on your property and put them in. So a lot of what we had to do this winter was just cutting back of perennials, pruning some of the shrubs, and then we ended up mulching both of these beds. We also planted these boom chocolate geraniums, but in season, it doesn't get super hot here, so we can really plant and transplant pretty much throughout the entire year. So right now, I'm just cutting back some of these geraniums. I love hardy geraniums. They are one of my favorite perennials. My favorite hardy geranium is probably the Spessart, which is really, I grow it because of the foliage. It's got a beautiful lemony scent to the leaves, and the flowers, it does flower early in the spring, and it's got really soft ivory colored flowers, and they look just very, very enchanting. And then the calyxes of the flowers are a soft pink, like a fuzzy pink, so those look really pretty even after they've finished blooming. But I'm just cutting back some of the spent seed heads here on this geranium and just creating this nice little ball, little sphere, making it look nice and tidy. And the daisies that were here, we transplanted to a little bit farther back in the border. So I think it's looking really nice. And that's one great thing about just kind of observing your garden, is just seeing what's working, seeing what's not, and then you can always move plants. The most important thing is, I think, just being an observer, being part of it, being present with your garden, seeing what's working, seeing what makes you feel good, seeing what makes the plants look like they're happy and they feel good, and then just adjusting accordingly. Because very often we can kind of get stuck in that feeling of, if I plant this here, it's going to be there forever. But really, like everything in nature, it's just fluid. It's very fluid. So you can move and all of that, and there's no forever in the garden with anything. So this is our porch bed, we call it. Very innovative with these names, just because it's by the porch. But this is sort of an evolving bed. We're now kind of incorporating it into the rest of our cottage garden. So it had a different color scheme. So the rest of our garden, we tend to do pinks, purples, blues, and whites. And then there are some things that were already here on the property that are like yellow and orange, so those pop up occasionally. But this bed is really peaches and purples kind of going throughout the spectrum from blue all the way to violet. And this is a lovely color scheme. I think the colors peach and purple just go together so beautifully. But now that we're incorporating it, it's just sort of a work in progress. And it's one of those beds where, because this area was so shady, we've since had to cut down a few trees that were dead, but they were really, really tall. Now it's getting a little bit more sun, so we're going to give some of these perennials another chance to go. But this Achillea hasn't bloomed, yarrow hasn't bloomed once since we put it in. And this is a peach colored yarrow. We have an echinacea there that's a peach color as well, and that hasn't bloomed, but it does seem to have some buds on it now. But yeah, it's just sort of an amalgamation of different perennials. We have some evergreen shrubs in here, hydrangea. I think in general it's getting there, but it hasn't really arrived quite yet. This spring we had some beautiful tulips in here. They were the Preston's Shogun tulips. And they skewed more orange on that peachy scale. I thought they might be a little bit of a softer color. So we did remove all of those, and we're going to be putting them on the hillside next year with all of our other tulips. It was the first year that we've pulled every single tulip up, and we've charged them, and we're going to be storing them and planting them up in the autumn. But usually we just do that with some of our bulbs in the veggie patch that we plant our tulips. But yeah, this bed just kind of needs some work because there are so many perennials. Again, we did a lot of perennial cutback. And when we're doing that, we like to add a little bit of mulch just to help everything look a little bit more cohesive. So I'm going to water our dahlias here. But when we are, developing a bed and working on it in the late winter, early spring, the main part of it is just kind of doing whatever you can to help your plants perform at their very best. So, cutting back the hydrangeas, that's a big part of this. Cutting back any of the dead branches from your trees or shrubs. Some of our evergreens, like this cryptomeria, this Nana's globe here, they just just died back. A lot of it died back. And so just cutting that back to help really give it the kind of care and attention that it needs. And this way, all of the pollinators can really enjoy everything once the season properly starts. Okay, these are our Dalmatian peach foxgloves that I started from seed back in January. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of these, and they're looking really healthy and beautiful. So I'll sprinkle these throughout. I can't decide if that's gonna look good, but I think it'll have to do. It's just so hard to know when not all the perennials have come up, and there's so many other things that are up right now. So I had to like tuck one in there because I think that's gonna be an empty spot. There are 2 giant hyssops right here, so I couldn't plant anything there. There are 2 foxgloves there. I think a little drift here, there. Don't know, we'll see. Hopefully it looks nice. Whenever I see things like that I planted from seed, I'm always like, I can't believe I did this. So we also finished up this fence, and that was really good because then the deer, have been leaving our garden alone, which is fantastic. And I'm really glad that we built these little gates, these little doors. And I need to paint the other one, but that's something that just feels really nice to get those kind of bigger things done. We also built our rose arbor. I think I showed you that earlier, but that's something that we've been planning on doing for a really long time. And we've already got the climbers going up it, looking really happy. At this time of year, some of the chores that we do, like I showed you, is deadheading, doing some cut back of the first flush of blooms, making sure that we keep up on watering. We do get a lot of rain, but on those days that we don't, our plants are like, hey, what's the deal? We were getting like bathed every single day and now it's too dry. So we do try to keep up on the watering as well here. These phlox, one of you had a great suggestion of just kind of cutting, selectively kind of pruning out some of these different some of the different stems of the phlox just to give it more airflow to help prevent the powdery mildew. The thing is that we just are really susceptible to powdery mildew here. Our phlox here, there's not that many stems at all and they're still afflicted with it. But that is a really great tip if you don't have terribly bad powdery mildew. Maybe just coming through at the beginning of the season, when you start to see the shoots come up, just start to prune some of those shoots to give it a lot of airflow so that you can prevent this from happening. Because I don't know if you can tell, but it is totally afflicted with powdery mildew. This is like the poster child for powdery mildew right here. Dictionary definition, there's the picture. So in the wintertime, I came in and I like to get out as soon as I can. Like basically as soon as some of the snow melts, I try and get out here and start working in the garden because it just feeds my soul. So I came in and I pruned back everything in these borders. These were the first borders that we worked on and they're just like so near and dear to my heart. But they have required a lot of transplanting and a lot of moving things around as I got to know the garden because I planted these in the fall the first year that I was here, and I wasn't really that familiar with the garden, with the light in the season and things like that. So now that we kind of know we're honing it in, we're kind of moving things around, I think we've got it to a pretty good place. But, you know, things like this fairy rose, which I love, it just blooms its head off, and it's such a pretty, very cottagey flower, but it does look a little bit wild, even though we pruned the heck out of it. But look, I mean, we pruned these ivory halo dogwoods so hard in the wintertime. We pruned them back like crazy, and they are enormous. You can't even tell. When I was doing it, it looked like, oh, maybe this is too much, but not at all. I mean, it looks like we could have almost done a little bit more, but they're beautiful. One of my favorite shrubs. Over here, these ones get eaten by the deer. So when I'm pruning, I typically just go down and cut them out with the dogwoods, because the new growth on those red twig dogwoods of any kind is going to be the most vibrant. So coming down and kind of pruning right at the base is really helpful. But sometimes the deer come in and kind of do some pruning for you. So that's why these are a little bit smaller and they don't get as much sun, but they're still really, really beautiful. And yeah, we did tons of cutback in this area, and then we mulched. So this time of year, it's really helpful to just wait until all of your spring, early summer bulbs have fully died back, and then you can cut them back. Sometimes I leave like the allium bulbs and stuff like that, or excuse me, the allium seed heads, just because I think they actually do look kind of pretty. But I'm going to cut these back. We need to get some more alliums in the autumn because they're a little sparse, as you can see, and they weren't as tall this year. The allium foliage is not very pretty, and this also just kind of dies back very, very quickly. So maybe they just haven't been able to properly recharge. One of the other things that I did was I came through and I cut back all the Elijah blues, which is the grass. I think it's in theory, such a beautiful little hedge here, because it's sort of a wispy, kind of like wispy whiskers of blue in the front of the border. And I think even from a distance, it looks really, really pretty. Actually, only from a distance, it looks really, really pretty this year, because I cut them back really hard. And I was saying this in a tour recently, it just looks like I gave them a horrible haircut. Like, it is really not good. They just look like, But yeah, so that was kind of a bummer. And they haven't, the brown on the sides, like the brown foliage of those grasses just hasn't grown in. So it just looks like blue on the top and brown on the bottom. It's not a good look. So if you do have Elijah blues, I would not do what I did, which is I came through and gave them an all around kind of cut. But you win some, you lose some. So now I'm just cutting back the geraniums here. A lot of what I'm doing in the borders is going to be somewhat the same because we do sort of tend to plant, once we find something that works in our area, we tend to plant a lot of it, especially if we like it. So that just means that some of the chores are going to be the same. Oh, this is my favorite smell. It just smells so fresh and lovely. So these are our coleus, and I've been looking on them for bugs that could be the culprit behind the issues we've been having. And these little green bugs, there. Do you see him right there? They kind of look like cucumber beetles, but that could be it. They've been decimating, those same bugs have been decimating our eggplants in the veggie patch, but I haven't seen one on there. Do you guys know what that is? Because, yeah, I might have to give that a little look-see. And if you do know what it is, do you have any ideas for, I don't know, maybe companion planting to help kind of mitigate the damage there? It's okay, it's just on the coleus, and you kind of can't really tell on that lime thyme because it's just such a vigorous plant. But yeah, we might have discovered the problem that we've been having. I know this is just like garden waste, but that is kind of pretty. So this is actually probably one of my favorite beds here. This is one of our shadier beds, and we call it the juniper bed because there's juniper. Very creative. But it's a really, really full bed, and it's got some of my favorite plants, like the pulmonaria, the lungwort here. This hosta is just stunning, and I really love hostas. I love their blooms. I love their foliage. I love that they look like little flowers coming out of the ground. We have some really beautiful heucheras. We have Alchemilla mollis. We have Nepeta, just some of my absolute favorite plants, and obviously the geraniums. These are the first spessarts that I ever got, so... Just a very like peaceful, lovely bed here, and it's right by my window where I usually work, so I really love it. Similar to the rest of the garden in terms of the cleanup we did in this bed, this had tons of really glorious blooms, especially the first spring that we were here. We planted up a lot, and then I think this year we're just going to kind of revamp it. But this past winter we did Scilla, and that was so beautiful. It was like a skirt of blue underneath our hydrangea standards. We cut back the hydrangea standards. We cleaned out our bird bath here. So this is our bird bath, and it's a beautiful stone bird bath. My only qualm here with it is that, well, I have two, I guess. First of all, with anything, any sort of hardscape or, especially stone stuff, we have such a long winter season. Really, as we were calculating it, we usually get our first snow in October. So then you have October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, we've had snow. So that's 7, 8 months where it's snowing, which is insane. Like, that's so crazy. Anyway, so anything that you have to put away for 8 months out of the year, 7, 8 months out of the year, I think that's a little ridiculous. Or cover them, So that's kind of a disappointment. I was talking to a friend of mine who works a lot with, she's an artist and she's a sculptor, and she does like she works with textiles, and she just does like all kinds of very creative work. And I was asking her, like, what do you think we could do in terms of like, some sustainable, like environmentally friendly, like containers and, statuary or things like bird baths that wouldn't be toxic to the birds, but what could you make it out of that would work? And she was like, I just don't know. I don't know what would be, wouldn't crack in all that weather. So it's just one of those things. So that's kind of a bummer, because I love this piece. I think it's so beautiful. I love its simplicity, but it still looks very elegant and elevated. That's one complaint that I have. That is, I have to put it away. The other complaint is that, so at the beginning of the season, the chore that I did for this was I brought it out and I cleaned it all up and took a toothbrush and vinegar and just went to town scrubbing it, and it looked brand new for about a week. And then it just started getting this discoloration again. And yeah, that's just kind of a bummer. I don't like it. But I don't really know what the solution is other than maybe just cleaning it out and then emptying it daily and refilling it daily. That could be a thing. Again, if you have any advice, suggestions, anything like that, I would really, really love to hear it. You know, I don't like adding more chores to the gardening list. But, you know, to make it look, you know, keep it looking nice, I'd be more than happy to add this to a daily chore list. So this is going to become our dining garden. Right now we just call it the shade garden, but this was the last bit of the fence that we finished here for the deer. And we finished the fence and finished the gate. And that was kind of the biggest cleanup that we did here. Aside from, I guess we took, you know, like maybe 15, 20 minutes to clear out all these beds of all of the foliage, the bulb foliage that we had. And we've started doing a little bit of planting. We do want to wait until we come up with a whole garden scheme back here. And that's probably just going to be like next on the list after we do our path, I'm hoping. Stay tuned for that because we're going to do a little garden path, which I'm really excited about. Come on in. This space just fills me with I'm not good with that. This space just fills me with so much joy and peace. I just love it in here. It makes me so happy. We did tons of work in here, and it's one of those things, it's an ever-evolving process. There's lots more work to be done. But here we have our beet and red velvet lettuce bed. We're gonna have to sow some more lettuce here because our lettuce is starting to bolt. But especially the salad bowl lettuce, this still tastes really, really good after it bolts. But yeah, it just looks so much different than it did just a little over a month ago. So the back of our veggie patch, oh my God, you guys, the tomatoes are really coming in and so are the zucchinis, which is so exciting. The back of the bed is starting to do what I've wanted it to do since we moved in, since we just came up with this whole plan, which is it's, you know, really starting to create a little wall back here. Oh, it's really exciting. Oh, something's afflicting this. This is just sort of what any time we walk through the garden, I'm like, oh, what's eating this? Oh, what's eating this? This one looks like the same thing that was getting that coleus. Just like little brown circles, eating little brown dots out of them. But yeah, we planted up this whole back border and mulched it up. We took all of our compost. My partner worked really hard on the compost last year, and just takes all of our food waste over there, and that just inviting in a compost heap has mitigated so much of our waste, and that just feels really, really good. It also feels so nice to close that gap in the cycle. It's just really that's a big part of gardening for me. That just feels very fulfilling, to feel like the garden feeds us, and then the waste from our food, from our meals, goes into the compost heap that we then use to feed the soil, that then feeds us, and also the animals. It feeds us and the animals here, and the bugs. But yeah, that feels really good to have that little closed loop. Oh, it's been a beautiful year, a beautiful season. I really hope that you've enjoyed hanging out in the garden with me today. It's it's a very peaceful time, and if you have any questions or suggestions or anything like that about prepping and when to start and about what plants or whatever, I'd love to kind of curate this content to what it is that you're struggling with or going through or anything like that. So let me know, and we'll see you again very soon. All right, bye.